Welcome to Galactic Nova Stories, where cosmic emotions come to life. Your journey begins now. The emergency klaxon shattered the quiet of Outpost Helios 7, jarring Dr. Marcus Reed from his concentration. His hands, steady as always, carefully placed the petri dish back into its holder before he activated his comm link. Medical Bay, Dr. Reed speaking. Doctor, we've intercepted a distress signal from an unidentified vessel. Commander Wren's voice crackled through the speaker. One life sign, critically injured. ETA 20 minutes. Marcus rubbed his eyes, feeling the weight of yet another sleepless night. I'll prepare Bay 3. Send me whatever biological data you can gather. Helios 7 orbited a lonely gas giant at the edge of human-controlled space, as far from Earth as Marcus could get while still practicing medicine. The frontier outpost housed 30 personnel, mostly scientists and a skeleton security team. Marcus had chosen this isolated assignment deliberately. 3 years wasn't long enough to escape the memories that followed him like shadows. The incoming biological scan flashed across his screen, and Marcus frowned. The readings showed an unfamiliar physiological structure, Lysari, a species rarely encountered this far from the galactic core. Their unique calcium-silicon skeletal structure would complicate any trauma treatment. When they wheeled the injured alien into his medical bay, Marcus assessed her condition with clinical detachment. The Lysari female's arm was badly fractured, crystalline bone fragments visible through translucent lavender skin. Her large, opalescent eyes fluttered open, focusing on Marcus with surprising clarity, despite her obvious pain. "Can you understand me?" Marcus asked, activating the medical translator. "Yes." Her voice emerged as a melodic whisper. "I am Ilara. I'm Dr. Reed. Your arm has sustained a complex fracture. I need to operate immediately." "You are human?" she asked, her head tilting slightly. "Yes. I'm going to help you," Marcus replied, already prepping surgical instruments. "I haven't treated many Lysari, but I've studied your physiology." "Our bodies are not like yours," she whispered. "The connections between bone and—" "I know," Marcus interrupted gently. "Your skeletal system has neural pathways integrated directly into the bone matrix. Makes injuries like yours particularly painful and complex to repair." Something flickered across her features. Surprise, perhaps. Marcus had always been thorough in his studies, even of species he'd never expected to encounter. Pain was pain, regardless of biology. And pain was something he understood intimately, though his wounds weren't physical. As Marcus worked to stabilize her condition, he noticed something unusual. Despite her obvious distress, Ilara seemed to be studying him with the same clinical interest he was showing her. Her gaze was penetrating, as though she could see beyond his carefully constructed professional facade. "You carry much weight, healer," she said suddenly, her voice stronger than before. Marcus's hands paused momentarily before continuing their work. "Save your strength. We'll have plenty of time to talk after surgery. Every great bond starts with a single moment of courage. Galactic Nova Stories is just beginning, and your support matters. If you love emotional sci-fi tales, forbidden connections, and stories that stay with you, hit subscribe. It's free and it helps us bring more stories from the stars to you." Marcus prepared the surgical field with practiced efficiency, trying to ignore how her words had pierced through his defenses. No one at the outpost had ever commented on his emotional state. They respected his privacy, his distance. Yet this alien, this stranger, had somehow sensed what he fought daily to conceal. "I'm going to sedate you now," he said, readying the specialized anesthetic compound he'd formulated for her unique biochemistry. "I trust you," Ilara replied, her eyes never leaving his face. "Your hands hold sorrow, but they are healer's hands." As the sedative took effect and her eyes closed, Marcus stood motionless for a moment. 3 years since Emily's death, and he'd buried himself in work, in isolation, fleeing across the stars to escape the void she'd left behind. Now, an alien woman with broken bones had somehow seen through him in minutes. With a deep breath, Marcus focused on the task at hand. He would mend her broken arm. That at least was something he still knew how to fix. The surgery lasted 4 hours, twice what it would have taken for a human patient. Lissari bone had a crystalline structure that required precise microfracture alignment and specialized bonding compounds. Marcus worked methodically, grateful for the challenge that kept his mind occupied and away from Ilara's unsettling perceptiveness. "How is our visitor?" Commander Wren asked, entering the recovery room as Marcus reviewed Ilara's post-operative scan. "Stable. The fracture was complex, 17 distinct breaks, but I've managed to realign the structure. Lissari healing is remarkable once the proper framework is established." Wren nodded, her expression serious. "We've analyzed the data from her ship. It appears she was attacked by raiders. No other survivors found yet." Marcus glanced at the sleeping form of his patient. "Has Central Command been notified? The Lissari Conclave will want to know one of their citizens is injured in human space." "That's complicated," Wren sighed. "Communications are down. That solar flare yesterday damaged our long-range array. We're limited to local transmissions. Until repairs are complete, estimated 3 days. "So we're on our own," Marcus murmured. "As usual," Wren confirmed with a wry smile. "Keep me updated on her condition. When she's conscious, we need to understand what happened." After the commander left, Marcus continued monitoring Ilara's vital signs. Lissari were known for their advanced technology and remarkable empathic abilities, an evolutionary adaptation that had made them exceptional diplomats and mediators across the galaxy. They were physically fragile compared to humans, with elongated limbs and delicate features, but their sensory perception far exceeded human capabilities. Ilara stirred, her eyelids fluttering open to reveal those striking opalescent eyes. "Doctor," she said softly, the translator catching her words. "How's the pain?" Marcus asked, immediately checking her readings. "Present but manageable." Her gaze tracked his movements with surprising alertness. "You reconfigured the standard human bone-knitting compound for my physiology." Marcus nodded. "I had to adjust for the silicon content in your skeletal structure. Most impressive for someone who claims limited experience with my kind," she observed. "Medicine is about adaptation," he replied, checking her arm's stabilization field. "All life follows certain patterns, even when the details differ. Yet, you struggle to apply this wisdom to yourself," Ilara said quietly. Marcus stiffened. "You should rest. Your body needs time to integrate the repairs." "My people believe healing is mutual," she continued, undeterred. "When one heals another, both are transformed by the exchange. Human medicine is a bit more straightforward," Marcus replied, his tone professional. "I fix what's broken. No transformation required." A small smile curved her lavender lips. "Is that why you've hidden yourself at the edge of your species' territory? Because nothing in you needs mending?" Before Marcus could respond, the overhead lights flickered briefly, another power fluctuation from the solar storm. He used the distraction to check readings on the other monitors. "Your ship was attacked," he said, changing the subject. "Do you remember what happened?" Ilara's expression darkened. "I was traveling to study healing practices among the Centauri colonies. My ship received a hail from what appeared to be a mining vessel in distress. When we stopped to render aid..." She paused, wincing not from physical pain, but the memory. "They specifically targeted our medical bay first. They knew exactly where to find me." "Why would raiders target a medical officer?" Marcus asked. "Not just any medical officer," Ilara replied. Was head researcher at the Central Healing Academy. My work focuses on cross-species cellular regeneration." She looked down at her bandaged arm. "Ironic that I now benefit from your species' techniques." Marcus considered this information. "Rest now. We'll talk more when you're stronger." As he turned to leave, her voice followed him. "Doctor, thank you for healing me, even if you don't believe in mutual transformation." Marcus didn't respond, but as the door closed behind him, he found himself wondering if perhaps there were wounds that even he wasn't equipped to diagnose, much less heal. By the third day, Ilara was sitting up in bed examining the medical bay with undisguised curiosity. The specialized field around her arm maintained perfect alignment of the healing bone shards, allowing her limited movement. Marcus found her, studying the molecular visualizer when he arrived for morning rounds. Your imaging technology is fascinating, she remarked without turning. Primitive in some ways, yet innovative in others. Marcus raised an eyebrow. Most patients don't consider our medical equipment primitive. It was not meant as criticism. Ilara clarified, turning to face him. Humans approach problems differently than my people. You build external tools. We modify ourselves. Is that why raiders targeted you? Marcus asked, checking her vitals. For Lissari biotechnology. Ilara's expression grew somber. Possibly. My research involves enhancing natural empathic abilities through cellular modification. Some see this as valuable or dangerous. Marcus frowned as he examined her arm. The healing is progressing well, but slower than I'd expected given what I know of Lissari regeneration. My body is distracted, she admitted. Your outpost emanates much emotional turbulence. 30 minds confined in isolation, each carrying their own burdens. It creates interference with natural healing processes. You can sense everyone's emotions? Marcus asked, skeptical yet intrigued. Not specific thoughts, but emotional energies. Yes, her eyes met his. Yours are particularly but loud. Marcus busied himself adjusting her treatment parameters. Can you block it out? To some extent, but it would be like asking you to stop hearing or seeing, she explained. May I demonstrate something? After a moment's hesitation, Marcus nodded. Your hand, please, Ilara requested. Cautiously, Marcus extended his hand. Ilara placed her uninjured hand above his, not touching, but close enough that he could feel a subtle warmth radiating between them. Among my people, healing begins here, she said softly. Before medication, before surgery, we establish connection. The patient's body recognizes itself in the healer, and healing pathways activate. That's not possible, Marcus said, though. He couldn't deny the strange sensation spreading up his arm, a tingling warmth unlike anything he'd experienced. Cells don't recognize intention, don't they? Ilara smiled. Your own medical history documents the placebo effect, spontaneous, remission, psychosomatic illness. The mind influences the body in ways your science acknowledges, but doesn't fully understand. The door slid open before Marcus could respond, revealing Lieutenant Cade, head of security. He regarded Ilara with poorly concealed suspicion. Doctor, Commander Wren requests your presence. We've received additional data from the wreckage. Marcus withdrew his hand from beneath Ilara's. I'll be there shortly. After Cade departed, Marcus prepared a nutrient solution calibrated to Lissari biology. You should eat something. Build your strength. Your security officer distrusts me, Ilara observed. Lieutenant Cade distrusts anything unfamiliar, Marcus replied. Nothing personal. Fear is always personal, she countered gently, as is grief. Marcus stilled, the nutrient packet halfway to her bedside table. I'm not grieving. Aren't you? Ilara's voice held no accusation, only compassion. 3 years is both a moment and an eternity when we lose someone essential to our existence. The nutrient packet slipped from Marcus's suddenly numb fingers. He caught it before it hit the floor but couldn't hide his shock. How did you— I told you, your emotions are loud, Ilara said softly. Especially that one. It surrounds you like a shell, keeping everything else out. Marcus placed the packet on her table with forced steadiness. My personal history isn't relevant to your treatment. Isn't it? Ilara challenged. You told me Lissari healing is remarkable once the proper framework is established. Yet you refuse to establish a proper framework for your own healing. We're done for now, Marcus said, retreating toward the door. The nutritional compound should help accelerate bone regeneration. I'll check on you this evening. As the door closed behind him, Marcus leaned against the corridor wall, his heart racing. 3 years of careful distance, of professional detachment, unraveled by a few words from an alien who could somehow see through the walls he'd built around himself. Emily's face flashed in his memory, her final days during the Callisto epidemic, when, despite all his medical knowledge, all his skill, he'd been helpless to save his own wife. Doctor, Commander Wren's voice jolted him back to the present. We've been waiting. Marcus straightened, composing himself. Sorry, Commander. I'm on my way. As he walked toward the command center, Marcus couldn't shake the sensation of warmth that lingered, where Ilara's hand had hovered above his. It felt uncomfortably like hope. The situation was worse than they had initially assessed. Commander Wren played the recovered footage from Ilara's ship, showing the ruthless precision of the attack. The raiders had used military-grade weapons, targeting communication arrays and defense systems before disabling engines. That's not standard raider behavior, Lieutenant Cade observed. Those are tactical strikes. Agreed, Wren said grimly. And there's more. We've identified the attackers, the Scythe Collective. They're mercenaries, not random pirates. Marcus felt his stomach tighten. Someone hired them specifically to attack Ilara's ship. Exactly, Wren confirmed. And given their reputation, so they don't leave jobs unfinished. You think they'll track her here, Marcus concluded. Cade's expression hardened. We should transfer her to a more secure facility. Communications are still down, Wren reminded him. And moving her in her condition... Her condition is improving, Marcus interjected. But she needs at least another week before travel would... Be safe. The station's emergency alert system suddenly blared to life. Red warning lights bathed the room as the automated system announced, critical power failure in sectors 4 through 7. Backup systems engaged. Engineering report, Wren demanded through her comm. Solar flare aftermath, Commander, came the strained reply. The power grid is destabilizing faster than we can reroute. Life support in the medical wing will be compromised in 20 minutes if we can't balance the load. Marcus was already moving. Ilara's in the medical wing. I need to get her to a secure area. Take her to Science Lab 2, Wren ordered. It's on an independent power circuit. The corridors were cast in eerie emergency lighting as Marcus rushed toward medical. When he reached Ilara's room, he found her disconnected from the monitoring equipment, standing unsteadily by the bed. You need to evacuate, she stated calmly. I heard the alert. I'm taking you to another section, Marcus explained, moving to support her. Can you walk? If necessary. Her uninjured arm went around his shoulders as he helped her toward the door. They had barely entered the corridor when a violent shudder ran through the station. The lights flickered ominously, and the artificial gravity fluctuated for a nauseating moment before stabilizing. That wasn't a power failure, Marcus muttered. His comm crackled to life with Cade's tense voice. Doctor, we have a situation. Impact damage in Sector 3. Multiple injuries reported. Medical assistance required. Marcus glanced at Ilara, who nodded in understanding. We need to help them. You're still recovering, he protested. I am a healer, she replied simply. Guide me to them. When they reached the impact site, chaos reigned. A power junction had exploded, injuring 4 engineering crew members. Marcus immediately assessed the casualties: burns, concussion, a compound fracture, and 1 unconscious with unknown internal injuries. Triage protocols, Marcus ordered. The responding security officers. Move the conscious victims to Science Lab 2. The unconscious patient needs immediate attention. As the others were carefully transported, Marcus knelt beside the unconscious engineer, scanning for internal bleeding. Ilara knelt opposite him, her injured arm held close to her body, while her free hand moved slowly above the patient's chest. Multiple ruptures in the hepatic system, she said quietly. Blood pooling in the abdominal cavity. Marcus's scanner confirmed her assessment seconds later. How did you help me? She interrupted. Place your hands here. She indicated points on the engineer's abdomen. Under normal circumstances, Marcus would have refused such an unorthodox approach, but with the power systems failing and no access to the surgical bay, options were limited. He positioned his hands as directed. Now close your eyes, Ilara instructed. Visualize the bleeding vessels. See them contracting, slowing the blood loss. That's not how human medicine works, Marcus objected. It's how Lissari healing works, she countered. And right now your human medicine is unavailable. Trust me, Marcus. It was the first time she had used his first name. Something in her voice compelled him to comply. He closed his eyes, feeling foolish yet desperate to save his patient. At first he felt nothing beyond the engineer's rapid pulse beneath his fingertips. Then gradually a warmth spread from Ilara's direction, similar to what he'd felt in the medical bay, but stronger, more focused. Impossibly, he began to sense the damaged tissue, almost as if he could see through his eye. Hands to the bleeding vessels beneath. "Direct your energy there," Ilara whispered. "Imagine repair, regeneration." Minutes passed in intense concentration. Sweat beaded on Marcus's forehead. When he finally opened his eyes, the engineer's color had improved, and the scanner showed decreased internal bleeding. "Temporary," Ilara said, her voice weakened by the effort. "But it will stabilize him until your equipment is functional again." Marcus stared at her in disbelief. "How did you do that?" "I didn't," she replied. "We did." Before Marcus could question her further, his comm activated with Commander Wren's urgent voice. "Doctor, be advised. Sensors have detected an unidentified vessel approaching our position. All personnel on high alert." Ilara's eyes met his, the implication clear. The Scythe Collective had found them. The next 12 hours passed in a blur of emergency repairs and heightened security protocols. The approaching vessel had disappeared from sensors almost as quickly as it had appeared. A reconnaissance probe, Cade surmised, confirming Ilara's location before the main force arrived. Marcus divided his time between treating the injured engineers and monitoring Ilara, whose condition had deteriorated after their unorthodox healing session. The energy expenditure had taxed her already compromised system, slowing her own recovery. "You shouldn't have done that," Marcus admonished, adjusting the regenerative field around her arm. "Your primary healing pathways are now competing between your arm and recovering your strength." "I made a choice," Ilara replied simply. "One life temporarily impaired to save another." They were alone in Science Lab 2, converted to a makeshift medical bay, while repairs continued in the main facility. The privacy gave Marcus the courage to ask what had been troubling him since their joined healing effort. "What happened when we treated Technician Foster? I felt something impossible." Ilara studied him thoughtfully. "Not impossible. Just beyond your current understanding. My people evolved differently than humans. Where you developed tools, we developed perception. We can sense bioelectrical fields, manipulate them to an extent. That doesn't explain how I could sense them too," Marcus pressed. "I created a bridge," she explained, "between your nervous system and mine. It allowed you temporary access to my perceptive abilities." Marcus frowned. "Without consent?" I asked. "Are you to trust me?" she reminded him gently. "And you did. But you're right. Among my people, such connections are never formed without explicit understanding. The emergency situation required immediate action." Her explanation should have disturbed him more than it did. Instead, Marcus found himself fascinated by the implications. "Could you teach someone, a human, to develop this ability independently?" "Perhaps with time and practice." "Why do you ask?" Marcus hesitated. "The medical applications would be revolutionary. Diagnosis without scanners, treatment in resource-limited environments. Those are logical benefits," Ilara acknowledged, "but not your true motivation." The door slid open before Marcus could respond, revealing Commander Wren. Her expression was grim. "Doctor, we need to talk." She glanced at Ilara. "Privately." "Anything you need to tell me can be said in front of my patient," Marcus replied, surprising himself with his defensiveness. Wren sighed. "Very well. We've decrypted more data." From Ilara's ship. The Scythe Collective wasn't hired by random technology thieves. They were contracted by a research division within the Terran Military Science Directorate. The revelation hung in the air like a physical presence. "My own people," Ilara whispered, disbelieving. "Not the Lissari government," Wren clarified. "A rogue scientific faction called the Evolutionary Vanguard. They believe the next stage of Lissari development should be guided rather than natural. According to the recovered data, they consider your research dangerous to their agenda." Marcus turned to Ilara. "Your research. You mentioned cellular modification of empathic abilities." "My work focuses on healing," Ilara said firmly. finding ways to share our empathic abilities temporarily with other species to facilitate medical treatment across physiological barriers. The Vanguard believes such abilities should be weaponized instead, amplified and controlled. And you refuse to cooperate, Marcus concluded. I destroyed my research rather than allow it to be perverted, she confirmed. What we did for your engineer that connection, it was a glimpse of what's possible when empathic abilities are used as intended. Healing, understanding, connection. The Vanguard would transform it into a means of control, of invasion. Commander Wren's comm unit chirped. Wren here. Commander, came Cade's tense voice. Long-range sensors have detected 3 vessels on approach. Configuration matches known Scythe collective signatures. ETA 4 hours. Acknowledged. Initiate. Defensive protocols, I'm on my way. Wren looked at Marcus. Doctor, I need you to prepare the medical bay for potential casualties. After she departed, a heavy silence filled the room. Marcus busied himself checking Ilara's vital signs, avoiding her gaze. Ask me, she said quietly. Marcus looked up. Ask? You what? What you've wanted to ask since the day I arrived, about the pain you carry. Marcus's hands stilled. For 3 years, he'd kept his grief locked away, focused on his work, fleeing across the stars to escape memories of Emily. Yet somehow, in mere days, this alien woman had breached defenses that his closest human colleagues had never penetrated. How? Did she die? Ilara asked softly. The question broke something in Marcus. Callisto plague, he answered, his voice barely audible. I was chief medical officer on the colony. When the outbreak began, we worked around the clock developing treatments. Emily was a xenobiologist. She identified the pathogen's weakness. We created a vaccine together. He swallowed hard. But she was exposed during the final trials. By the time we realized, it was too late. The vaccine saved thousands of colonists, just not her. You blame yourself, Ilara observed, for saving others instead of her. I should have recognized the symptoms earlier, Marcus admitted. The confession, painful even after 3 years. She was working herself to exhaustion. We both were. I mistook the early signs for fatigue. And so you punish yourself by isolation, by refusing connection. Marcus met her gaze, finally acknowledging the truth. Wouldn't you? I have, Ilara said simply. My bonded partner was killed during political unrest 20 years ago. I too fled into my work, refusing to form new connections. What changed? Marcus asked. I realized that healing others while refusing to heal myself was not merely hypocritical. It was ineffective. A healer who carries untreated wounds cannot offer their full potential to others. Before Marcus could respond, the station's alert system blared once more, but this time it wasn't a power failure. The Scythe Collective had arrived early, and Helios 7 was about to become a battlefield. All personnel to battle stations. This is not a drill. Repeat, all personnel to battle stations. Commander Wren's voice echoed through the station's communication system as Marcus helped Ilara into the secure inner chamber of the science lab. The station shuddered violently as the first volley of weapons fire connected with the outer shields. They're earlier than expected, Marcus muttered, checking that the emergency medical supplies were accessible. They would have pushed their engines beyond safe parameters, Ilara explained, settling into a chair. It suggests desperation. Marcus activated the reinforced security doors. Stay here. I need to check on the other patients. Marcus. Ilara caught his arm with her uninjured hand. If they breach the station, they will come for me first. They'll have to get through me, he replied with unexpected fierceness. Something shifted in Ilara's expression, surprise followed by a gentle smile. You've already begun to heal. You just don't recognize it yet. Before Marcus could respond, his comm unit activated. Dr. Reed, report to emergency triage in Corridor C, came Lieutenant Cade's strained voice. We have multiple injuries from a hull breach in the observatory. On my way, Marcus confirmed, gathering supplies. To Ilara, he added, lock this door. Behind me. Don't open it for anyone but me or Commander Wren. The corridors were chaos, emergency lighting, warning klaxons, and the distant sound of weapons fire creating a cacophony of danger. Marcus found 5 injured crew members being sheltered in a sealed maintenance junction. 2 security officers with minor wounds were helping the more seriously injured. "Status?" Marcus demanded, kneeling beside a young researcher with a severe laceration across her torso. "Hull breach was contained," one security officer reported. "But they've landed boarding parties on the upper docking rings. Lieutenant Cade is coordinating defense." Marcus worked rapidly, applying pressure bandages and administering emergency treatments. As he moved from patient to patient, he found himself wishing for Ilara's assistance, not just her medical knowledge, but the strange connection they had formed while treating the engineer. His comm unit crackled again. "Doctor, are you there?" Commander Wren's voice was tense. "Here, Commander, treating casualties in Section C. They're targeting the science labs. Get back there now." Marcus's blood ran cold. "On my way." To the security officers, he added, "Stabilize the remaining patients and move them to the central hub when possible." He sprinted through the corridors, dodging debris and emergency response teams. When he reached the science section, he found the security door to Lab 2 partially breached, melted around the edges from some powerful cutting tool. Inside, 3 figures in unmarked tactical gear were attempting to subdue Ilara, who was putting up a surprising resistance despite her injured arm. One attacker lay unconscious on the floor, apparently having underestimated her. Marcus didn't hesitate. He grabbed a fallen metal support strut and swung it with all his strength, connecting with the nearest attacker's back. The figure crumpled. With a grunt of pain, the third intruder spun toward Marcus, raising a weapon. Marcus dove behind a workstation as energy fire sizzled overhead, scorching the wall behind him. "Surrender the Lysari researcher," the attacker demanded, voice distorted through a tactical mask. "Our quarrel is not with this station." "You made it my quarrel when you attacked my patient," Marcus retorted, searching for a weapon or distraction. His gaze fell on a canister of compressed gas used for sample preservation. With a silent prayer to whatever cosmic forces might be listening, Marcus grabbed a nearby laser scalpel and hurled the activated tool at the canister. The resulting explosion wasn't large, but it was disorienting. A blinding flash and deafening bang that sent the attacker staggering backward. Marcus launched himself forward, tackling the figure to the ground. They grappled briefly before Marcus managed to tear away the tactical mask, revealing a face that stunned him into momentary immobility. Not human, but Lysari. "Your own people?" Marcus gasped. The Lysari operative sneered. "She betrays our evolutionary destiny. Her research would dilute our gifts among lesser species rather than elevate us to our rightful place." Our shadow fell across them. Marcus looked up to see Ilara standing over them, her expression one of profound sadness. "Evolution is not destiny, Nemoth," she said quietly. "It is possibility, one path among many." The operative, Nemoth, laughed bitterly. "Your philosophy will die with you, Ilara. The Vanguard has already replicated enough of your research to proceed without you. Your elimination is merely tidying up." A strange calm settled over Ilara's features. "If you have my research, then you know what I discovered about forced empathic connections, how they damage both participants. Acceptable losses for transcendence," Nemoth spat. "Not to me," Ilara replied softly. Before either man could react, she placed her hand on Nemoth's forehead. The Lysari operative's eyes widened in shock, then pain. His body went rigid, then limp. When Ilara removed her hand, Nemoth lay unconscious, but breathing. "What did you do?" Marcus asked, rising shakily to his feet. "A neural reset," Ilara explained, swaying slightly from the effort. "I severed his connection to the Vanguard's empathic network. He will awaken with his abilities intact, but free from their influence." Marcus steadied her as she stumbled. "That took a lot out of you." "A necessary expenditure," she replied, leaning against him. "There will be more coming. The Vanguard doesn't act without contingencies." As if summoned by her words, the station's alert system announced, "Multiple breaches detected. Security teams to sectors 5, 7, and 9. "We need somewhere secure," Marcus muttered, surveying the damaged lab. "Somewhere they wouldn't expect." An idea formed in his mind. Risky, but with potential. The quarantine chamber in the medical bay? It's designed to be biologically isolated with independent air supply and reinforced walls. Can we reach it? Ilara asked. Through the maintenance tunnels, Marcus confirmed, gathering essential supplies. They'll be focused on the main corridors. As they prepared to leave, Ilara paused by the unconscious Nemeth. We should take him with us. He tried to kill you, Marcus protested, and I chose to heal him instead, she countered. Isn't that, what healers do? Marcus couldn't argue with her logic, though it contradicted every self-preservation instinct he possessed. Together, they managed to drag the unconscious Lissari operative into the maintenance tunnel just as another explosion rocked the station. Your commander is putting up an impressive defense, Ilara observed as they navigated the narrow passage. Ren doesn't surrender easily, Marcus agreed, much like someone else I've met recently. Their eyes met briefly in the dim emergency lighting, an unspoken understanding passing between them. They had both been running, from loss, from connection, from their own broken pieces. Now, paradoxically, in the midst of danger, they were finally standing still long enough to face those fragments. When they reached the medical bay quarantine chamber, Marcus was relieved to find it intact and unoccupied. They sealed themselves. Inside, the transparent walls offering visibility of the surrounding area while providing protection. Now what? Ilara asked, as Marcus secured the unconscious Nemeth to an examination table. Now, Marcus said, accessing the medical bay's central system, we turn your research against them. My research? Ilara asked, watching as Marcus called up the station's environmental controls. You said the Vanguard has replicated your work on empathic connections, Marcus explained, fingers flying across the interface. But you destroyed your research before they could get the complete picture, right? Ilara nodded slowly. The final component, the neural resonance stabilizer. Without it, forced empathic connections cause progressive degradation in both participants, which means the Vanguard operatives are using an incomplete version of your technology, Marcus concluded. They're linked in an empathic network that's slowly damaging them. Yes, Ilara confirmed. The damage accumulates with each use. Eventually it becomes irreversible. Marcus turned to her, his expression intense. Could we create a feedback surge in their network? Something that would temporarily disable them without causing permanent harm? Ilara's eyes widened with understanding. Theoretically, yes, but it would require a powerful empathic transmission source calibrated to their specific frequency. Like Nemeth, Marcus suggested, indicating the unconscious operative. And me, Ilara added quietly. We would need both a connected node and an independent transmitter. Marcus frowned. That sounds dangerous for you. It is, she acknowledged, but less dangerous than allowing them to continue their assault on this station. Before they could discuss further, the medical bay doors slid open. Marcus tensed, ready for another attack, but instead Commander Ren limped in, supported by Lieutenant Cade. Both were bloodied but determined. Doctor, Ren greeted grimly. I see you had the same idea for a fallback position. Commander, Marcus acknowledged, helping them into the quarantine chamber. Status report? Not good, Cade admitted. They've taken the upper levels. We've got security teams holding critical junctions, but we're outnumbered. Comms are jammed, no way to call for reinforcements. We have a plan, Marcus said, quickly explaining what he and Ilara had discussed. Ren looked skeptical. You want to create some kind of psychic weapon? Not a weapon, Ilara corrected. A reset like what I did to Nemeth, but on a larger scale. It won't harm them permanently, just disrupt their network long enough for your people to regain control. And what happens to you in this scenario? Cade asked shrewdly. Ilara hesitated. There will be feedback. The connection must flow through a conscious mind. No, Marcus stated flatly. There has to be another way. There isn't, she replied softly. Not with the resources we have available. Marcus met her gaze, understanding the unspoken truth. After a moment, he turned to Ren. We'll need to modify the life support system to carry an empathic resonance pattern. Can your engineers do that? If anyone can, it's Chief Rivera, Ren said, activating her comm. Rivera, meet us in Medical Bay, Priority Alpha. While they waited, Marcus began preparing the necessary medical equipment. Ilara watched him work, noting the focused intensity in his movements. "You're afraid," she observed quietly, moving to stand beside him. "Of course I am," he admitted. "This plan puts you at significant risk. Yet you're still helping me implement it." Marcus paused, searching for words. "Because you're right. It's the only viable option, and because, she prompted when he trailed off. "Because sometimes saving one person means helping them save others," he finished. "Even at great cost. I think I finally understand." "That now," Ilara placed her hand over his. "Emily would be proud of you." Marcus looked up, startled. "The connection goes both ways," she explained gently. "When we healed the engineer together, I glimpsed your memories. She was brilliant and compassionate. Like you." Before Marcus could respond, Chief Rivera arrived with her engineering team. The next hour passed in a flurry of technical modifications and medical preparations. They retrofitted a neural scanner to interface with the station's life support system, creating an improvised empathic transmitter. "It's crude," Rivera admitted, "but it should amplify the signal throughout the station." As the final preparations were completed, Marcus took Ilara aside. "There's something I haven't told you," he said quietly. "Based on my calculations, the feedback will be stronger than you've estimated. You could suffer permanent neural damage." "No," she replied simply. "Then why?" "Because healing isn't always painless," she interrupted. "Sometimes it requires sacrifice." Marcus struggled with her acceptance. "I can't lose someone else," he admitted, the words barely audible. Ilara placed her hand against his cheek. "You won't be losing me, Marcus. Whatever happens, I will always be part of you now. That's how connection works." When everything was ready, they positioned Nemeth and Ilara on adjacent beds, neural interfaces attached to both. The unconscious operative had been partially revived, enough for his neural pathways to be active, but not enough for conscious resistance. "The signal will transmit through Nemeth to the Vanguard network," Ilara explained, as Marcus attached the final sensors. "Then I'll send the reset pulse through that connection. Everyone else should clear the chamber," Marcus instructed. The empathic feedback might affect anyone in close proximity. After the others withdrew, Marcus hesitated by Ilara's side. "I'll be monitoring your vitals. At the first sign of dangerous neural activity, I'm shutting this down. By then, it will be too late," she said with a small smile. "Trust me one more time, Marcus. Trust that I know what I'm doing." With a reluctant nod, Marcus initiated the sequence and stepped back behind the monitoring station. The equipment hummed to life, neural pathways visualized on the screens before him. He watched as Ilara closed her eyes, her breathing settling into a deep, meditative rhythm. The connection formed slowly at first, tendrils of neural activity extending from Ilara to Nemeth, then branching outward to invisible nodes throughout the station. On the security monitors, Marcus could see the Vanguard operatives suddenly falter, as if hearing something only they could perceive. Ilara's vital signs began to fluctuate. Her neural activity spiked dangerously, the feedback already beginning. Marcus moved to terminate the process, but Ilara's eyes snapped open, locking with his across the room. The silent plea in them was unmistakable. "Trust me." Against every medical instinct, Marcus stepped back, allowing the process to continue. The station's lights flickered as power was diverted to amplify the signal. On the monitors, the Vanguard, operatives clutched their heads, dropping weapons and falling to their knees. Nemeth's body arched in unconscious response, the connection between him and the network straining under the reset pulse. Then, suddenly, Ilara convulsed. Her neural readings went critical, warning alarms blaring from the medical equipment. Marcus rushed to her side, medical training taking over as he stabilized her seizing body. "Emergency shut down," he shouted to Rivera through the intercom. "Cut. Power to the transmitter." As the system powered down, Ilara went limp beneath his hands. For one terrible moment, her vital signs flatlined, a moment that stretched into eternity for Marcus. Then, faintly at first, but strengthening, her heartbeat returned. Marcus released a breath he hadn't realized he was holding. On the security monitors, the Vanguard operatives lay unconscious throughout the station. Lieutenant Cade's security teams were already moving in, securing weapons and restraining the incapacitated attackers. "You did it," Marcus whispered to Hilara's unconscious form. "You saved everyone." As he worked to stabilize her condition, Marcus realized something had changed within him. The hollow emptiness that had been his constant companion for 3 years had been filled with something new, not replacing what he had lost, but existing alongside it. A connection that transcended species, transcended physical boundaries. For the first time since Emily's death, Marcus allowed himself to feel hope. 3 days passed before Ilara regained consciousness. Marcus rarely left her side, monitoring her neural patterns and watching for signs of permanent damage. The station had returned to relative normalcy, repairs underway, the Vanguard operatives, confined and awaiting transfer to Alliance authorities. When Ilara finally opened her eyes, Marcus was dozing in a chair beside her bed. She studied him silently, noting the worry lines etched around his eyes, the stubble indicating neglected self-care. "You look terrible," she observed, her voice barely above a whisper. Marcus jerked awake, relief washing over his features. "Standard bedside manner for human doctors," he replied, running a handheld scanner over her. "How do you feel?" "Like I've been torn apart and reassembled," Ilara admitted. "Did it work?" "Perfectly," Marcus confirmed. "The Vanguard operatives were incapacitated long enough for security to round them up. According to Commander Wren, they woke up disoriented but free from the neural network's influence." "And Nemeth?" "Recovering in a separate facility. He's been cooperative, providing information about the Vanguard's operations. It seems your neural reset did more than just disconnect him from their network." Ilara nodded weakly. "It would have restored his empathic equilibrium. Without the Vanguard's influence, his natural ethical framework would reassert itself." Marcus adjusted her medication. "Your neural readings show significant reorganization. I don't fully understand the implications." "I pushed beyond normal parameters," she explained. "My empathic capabilities have been altered, not diminished, but changed. I'll need time to understand the new configuration." A comfortable silence fell between them. Through the medical bay windows, the gas giant's swirling atmosphere painted the room in gentle blues and purples, a stark contrast to the chaos of recent days. "Long-range communications have been restored," Marcus said finally. "A Lizari diplomatic vessel is en route. They'll be here within 2 days." "I see," Ilara replied, studying his expression. "You seem troubled by this news." Marcus smiled faintly. "That obvious, huh?" "To me, yes." He sighed, organizing his thoughts. "I've spent 3 years running from connection, convincing myself that isolation was safer than risking loss again. Then you arrive, and in less than 2 weeks, I disrupted your carefully constructed defenses," she finished for him. "You showed me they were never defenses at all," he corrected. "Just walls I'd built around my pain, preserving it rather than healing it." "And now?" she asked softly. Marcus met her gaze directly. "Now I find myself facing another loss, one I'm not prepared for." The admission hung between them, honest and vulnerable. Ilara extended her hand, and Marcus took it without hesitation. The connection formed instantly, not the dramatic healing energy they'd shared during the crisis, but something quieter, more intimate, an understanding that transcended words. "What if it doesn't have to be a loss?" she suggested. Before Marcus could respond, Commander Wren entered the medical bay. She looked considerably more recovered than when Marcus had last seen her, though she still moved with careful precision. "Dr. Healer Ilara," she greeted them. "I hope I'm not interrupting." "Not at all, Commander," Marcus replied, though he didn't release Ilara's hand. "What can we do for you?" "I've just finished a rather interesting transmission with the Lysari Diplomatic Corps," Wren said. "It seems your actions have created quite a stir. The exposure of the evolutionary vanguard has prompted significant political restructuring within the Lysari conclave." "That's unexpected," Ilara commented cautiously. "Indeed. Even more unexpected was their specific request regarding you, Dr. Reed." Marcus blinked in surprise. "Me?" The Lysari Healing Council has proposed an exchange program, the first of its kind. They're requesting that a human physician with experience in cross-species medicine join their flagship healing vessel to develop protocols integrating human and Lysari techniques. Ren smiled slightly. They asked for you specifically. Marcus trailed off, momentarily speechless. It's a tremendous opportunity, Ren continued, though of course we would hate to lose you here at Helios 7. What about the Vanguard? Ilara asked. They won't simply disappear because their latest attempt failed. True, Ren acknowledged. The diplomatic corps mentioned that the healing vessel would benefit from your continued expertise as well, Healer Ilara, both for your medical knowledge and your first-hand experience with the Vanguard's methods. The implication was clear. The assignment would keep them together, working side by side. I'll need time to consider, Marcus said carefully, though his racing heart had already made the decision. Of course, Ren replied. The diplomatic vessel arrives in 2 days. You have until then to provide your answer. With a respectful nod to both of them, she departed. When they were alone again, Ilara turned to Marcus. You're conflicted. Not about wanting to go, he clarified. About whether I deserve such an opportunity. Healing others while refusing to heal yourself is not merely hypocritical, it's ineffective, she reminded him gently. You told me once that medicine is about adaptation. Perhaps it's time to adapt your understanding of healing. Marcus looked down at their joined hands, human and Lysari, different in form but identical in purpose. What exactly would we be creating together? Something new, Ilara replied. A bridge between our people's approaches to healing, your empirical techniques combined with our empathic understanding. Imagine what we could accomplish. It's not just about the work, Marcus admitted. It's about... He hesitated, searching for words. Connection, she finished. I know, it frightens me too. Marcus looked up, surprised. You? After everything you've said about healing requiring connection? Knowing the principle doesn't make application easy, she said with a small smile. I told you I lost my bonded partner 20 years ago. Since then, I've connected with patients, colleagues, friends, but never allowed anyone close enough to truly matter. Until now, Marcus asked quietly. Until now, she confirmed. 2 days later, Marcus stood in the docking bay as the Lysari diplomatic vessel coupled with Helios 7. His few personal possessions were packed, his medical research data transferred to portable storage. Commander Wren and the station personnel had gathered to see him off, some surprised by his decision, others knowing him well enough to understand this was a beginning, not an ending. As the airlock cycled open, revealing the Lysari delegation, Marcus felt Ilara's presence beside him. Her arm had healed completely, though she wore a supportive band as a precaution during space travel. Second thoughts? She asked softly. Marcus shook his head. For the first time in 3 years, I'm not running away from something. I'm moving towards something. A subtle but crucial distinction, she agreed. The Lysari representatives approached, their formal greetings and diplomatic protocols washing over Marcus in a blur of ceremony. What remained clear was the path before him, undefined yet full of promise. Not a replacement for what he had lost, but a new chapter built upon the foundation of all that had come before. As they prepared to board the vessel, Marcus paused for one last look at Helios 7, the place he had chosen for its isolation, never expecting it would be where he would finally reconnect. Ready? Ilara asked, extending her hand. Marcus took it, feeling the now familiar warmth of their connection flowing between them. Ready. Together, they stepped forward into the unknown, a human doctor who had healed an alien's broken arm, and an alien healer who had mended a human's broken heart. In their joined hands lay the promise of transformation, not just for themselves but for countless others across the stars who would benefit from their shared healing. The universe, Marcus reflected, had a strange way of bringing together exactly what was needed, precisely when it was needed most, not through random chance but through the countless interconnected moments that bound all living beings, human, Lysari, and beyond, in the shared experience of existence. It wasn't perfect. It wasn't without risk. But it was, without question, exactly where he was meant to be.